G'day and welcome to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. We are recording today at the end of the bye rounds. No more best 18s. We are finally done with that rubbish and we are going to the final stretch of the season where potentially we're hitting some luxury trades. Let's go!
Hodge has done it from nowhere. Busting the goal from inside the target. Sheed from the boundary. Dusty.
G'day and welcome again to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Casey, and you can find me on Twitter at Ball Boys Fantasy, and joined by the man who coaches the mighty Oxlongs, and he is back up and about this week, ladies and gentlemen. He is, I expect we'll have a happier Luke this time around because you had a good round, in particular, a good final game of the round as well.
Look, I don't want to overreact, but I'm a genius. This is the round I've been waiting for.
This was your time to strike.
Exactly. I've just been like a snake in the grass, just waiting, lulling everyone into a false sense of security. And then my big boys come out and got it done in that final game, mate.
He did. Everything was just falling into place. You didn't, like, we were watching it at your place, and we were going to go home at 3/4 time, but you said, no, you can't leave.
Don't move.
Don't do anything different.
Scratch your nuts. Don't blink in the wrong direction because it was all happening. Look, I only had to sacrifice 4,000 ranking spots before my plan got into place. But now, Tuke Miller, Andy Brayshaw, averaging 130 for the rest of the year.
That's it. Here we go. So
there's no stopping the boys.
Number one trade targets, absolutely.
And I never doubted him, you see. You go back, check the videos, go back, check. Never.
Hey, look, I want a little bit of the credit here because I gave him the rocket of all rockets, Andy Brayshaw, that is, with the camel of the week last week. And he responded. This is good coaching. And you weren't here to do it, so...
Well, you did on Tuesday, but yeah, I did give him a little bit on Thursday, didn't I? I wasn't happy.
I think you've been giving it to him more than just Thursday and every other day.
It's been a little while. See, the thing was, however, as much as I was elated by going up 4,000 spots in the last game, yesterday,
one game,
it was
4,000 spots.
I was going to the sky, but
at one point I moved from 6th to 7th, and you said, "No, that was me. I've passed you." I was like, "Oh shit, he had a really good game."
I was going real good. But all the other players that I don't have still did well.
Yeah, it felt a bit like that. I feel like the midfield's back.
I could have done with a Dunkley dud game or an Errol disgusting game as well, but it just didn't happen.
Yeah, it was every midfielder seemed to go well except for one quenched Clayton Oliver, but we'll talk about him in a second. So let's talk about our rounds. What did you end up scoring for the round?
Just under 2,000, 1992.
1992, and where you ranked at the moment. And how have you gone throughout the entirety of the bye rounds? Because we said at the start of the bye round, we treat it as one kind of big round because sometimes you'll have some up rounds, sometimes you'll have some down. How have you gone throughout the last 4 weeks?
Well, leading into the buys, I was ranked 1,700. I have failed because I've gone back 500 spots from there.
So yeah, what, 2,200?
2,200. It's up 600 spots on last week, which was nice.
Do you feel like your team is better?
No.
Okay, so it's all around just disaster.
It was all around a failure. Yeah, it really was. I think there was just a lot of bad stuff that some self-inflicted, some outside my control. But like thinking of some of the things that happened during there, Wangadeen Miller to Luke Ryan. That was a forced trade. Luke Ryan averaging 70 for me,
69 or something like that. Yeah.
Then midway through this round, I had my trades were all sorted. I was bringing in Zach Merritt, I was bringing in Jai Caldwell, and then
thank you for that, by the way.
Yeah, based on some foreshadowing, I thought, look, I'm not going to be happy shopping in the defender market at the price that I'm going to get this next coming week. So I thought, hey, look, what I'll do is I won't bring in Caldwell. I made a late switch. I brought in Jordan Clark. So another brilliant Rogerson move, really, because Caldwell went for his biggest score of the year and Jordan Clark barely got near it.
And us Caldwell owners are very thankful for your sacrifice.
Hey, look, I think about others.
But you did have a trade-in target go 100 plus. You brought in Zach Merritt this week. And,
I did my best in that second quarter.
The Rogerson curse, dare we say, Could it have been lifted?
Nah, it's not lifted.
No, okay, well, it's a bit early to say. But
had I also got Caldwell, I would have been prepared to say lifted.
All right.
But no, Jordan Clark, I managed to fuck it up. Even a good situation there.
So, and you beat Holmesy in the Content Creators Cup.
Just got a little win over Holmesy there. So
he's the only person to beat me in the Content Creators Cup so far this year.
You're like Sydney.
Yeah.
He's like Richmond. Sorry, Holmesy. You're a bit better than fucking Richmond.
Yeah,
But
no one's that bad. So there you go, Holmesy. And that week he was, I remember just like yesterday, he was saying he's going to lose, and then he came back and got me on the Sunday. But he's the only one that's beat me so far. I had another win on the weekend against Hef, and scored 20-30, and I've moved 2 places up.
7th.
From 9th to 7th. I'm 11 points behind 5th. And 4 or 5 points behind 6th. So 5th, 6th, and 7th are all within a bee's dick of each other. And then 128 points behind 1st. And I moved 30 points closer back to 1st. So
what rims are you going to get?
Mate, no, just ease up. It's still a long way to go.
I reckon mud terrain, all terrain.
I don't reckon I'll get there. Like this part of the season, this is my kryptonite. No, stop putting the moz on me, mate. You're trying to moz me. I thought you were on my team. But yeah, so there's a long way to go, and it's luxury season time. And this traditionally has been this part of the year that I fucking suck at.
You will inevitably fuck your team up in the
this is where I'll fuck my team. I'll do something tricky. I'll do something fancy and trade out a player for someone who scores 50 points better. This is the hard part of the season. So the bye rounds, hopefully you were able to make your team better. I feel like I have. I started at 33rd pre-bye round, finished at 7th. And for the second year in a row, I've actually gone up every single bye round. So that's 8 bye rounds in a row.
Nice, man.
Going up. So, yeah, starting to get pretty good at these bye rounds. But now, like I said, this is the test. Luxury trading season. We're going to talk about what we're going to do with that in a second. But before we do, Infinite Wealth, what have they got going on?
Yeah, obviously Content Creators Cup. You heard us reference it before, guys. So if you haven't been aware up until now, obviously all the content creators getting in there competition to win a bit of money for charity, and that's brought to you guys by Infinite Wealth, Guessie's company. So making smarter financial decisions. They're offering us a free gift up to almost $3,000 there, accessed at infinitewealth.com.au/AFL Fantasy, available for all fantasy coaches. So if you haven't already, get over and check that one out for sure.
I think they've got a over in Perth, if you're a Perth listener, I think they've got a bit of a seminar or something like coming out for anyone to
I've got a couple of texts about that. Stop sliding into me text, Guesty.
Yeah, keep getting a text. Oh, yep, it's old Guesty again. But yeah, no, if you are over in Perth, you can get over there. It'd be pretty cool to jump in and hear it from the man himself. All right, let's talk about the camel of... Oh, sorry, not the camel. The sponge of the week. We'll start positive.
Sponge of the week, but I think we're going to have to change the graphic for this one if we've got, any time.
Who lives in a pineapple under the sea?
SpongeBob SquarePants!
Absorbent and yellow and porous is he.
SpongeBob SquarePants!
Now, I think I'm one of 2 coaches in the top 10 that don't have Luke Ryan, and this has been a masterstroke since the last couple rounds. The ultimate moz, putting his face on the graphic, and
combined with me trading him in, of course.
That's no man could survive that.
You can't defeat that, Moz. And so Luke Ryan, and my spicy take too, I reckon I'm on there. I said last week, I said Luke Ryan to average less than 100 for the rest of the season. I mean, I might have been a little bit...
bit generous.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
I think it could be even worse with Alex Pearce getting injured.
But who's our sponge this week?
This week we've got EG. It's been painful to watch for the last 3 weeks, but it has been your best trade of the week. But not only does this guy just rack up points for fun, but he just never leaves the fucking ground.
He never leaves the ground. And this is
spongy behaviour at its best. 98% game time.
He had one moment, he stayed on the entire first quarter, the entire third quarter, the entire fourth quarter. He had one little rest in the second quarter, just to, he's thirsty, get his drinks in and start, getting up there, but straight back out in the field. 12 marks in a wet game. In a wet game, he had 12 marks, 154, 41 touches. This is good. This
reeks. You mentioned a couple of years ago you had you're going all right, and then you just couldn't get Rory Laird in when he was going bananas at the end of the season. This is going to be me. I can barely afford to get fucking Jai Simpkin in this week, let alone looking at Errol Goulden. So
there sometimes is that guy that just pops that second half of the year.
He could be that guy.
And so far it is. He's gone 144 average over the bye round. So if you didn't get him after his round 12 bye, he's definitely been hurting you a lot. So, very worthy winner.
Sponge City. And
my hump, my hump, my hump, my hump, my hump. My hump.
Goes for a long time.
Clayton Oliver. This was disgusting
This
for anyone who
was-
had him and held him for that week. Maybe you had the Nazai Wangani-Miller out and you were a lot of people might have been trading him out and then reversed their trades and
Bro, I would
you're
have
the
been
opposite.
well. I would have been holding him had I not jumped on Connor Rosie, which last week looked like an idiot. This week looked like a superstar.
yeah, you're like a fucking rock star. But mate, do you know what he had at halftime?
-2 or something like that.
He had 1 point at halftime.
Creepers.
1 point, and
It's bad, eh?
I mean, he's getting tagged. I don't know why teams are bothering to tag him, to be honest.
He's tagging himself. Right.
And he's not tackling. He looks well off it. Some people were maybe optimistic that he was going to be, come good with Petrarca out. But see you later, that idea. Like, that's fucked. So he is number one priority trade out if you have him in your side.
It's incomprehensible what has happened to Clayton Oliver.
You rewind, 16 months ago, and first couple of months of last season, he was putting up 120s every single week. If you were to tell me that in 14 months' time that he was going to put up a 20 and not be injured, I would have just laughed. Like that is so far away from what we know Clayton Oliver to be, but he's not turning around. I don't think he's just had a terrible season.
Abandoned ship.
Abandon that ship for sure. Yeah, get off that camel for sure. All right.
And the winner of the Norm Smith medal.
You're an embarrassment to what you do, mate. You're an embarrassment.
Carlton versus Geelong way back on the Friday night's game. I'm going to give the best on ground. Like we could have said it was a Sam Walsh, but he was all right. But I'm going to give it to Tom De Koning. And shout out to my Bolter team. A little sneaky extra trade in here. So I was pretty happy to jump on that for a 131 big matchup against the Geelong ruckman there, or lack of ruckman, really. So
against his little brother, mate.
Yeah, ended up going against his little brother, who I didn't know could ruck, really. I thought he was a key defender, but he ended up jumping in the ruck. And, did pretty well. So I think the bigger thing to take away from this is the matchup with those Geelong. If they're going to continue with that kind of a ruck setup, that's a pretty juicy matchup for us to target.
It could be dirty. This flog here, it's a little bit of an intricate one, but Brian Myers scored well on the weekend. The reason I'm giving him the flog is because he, as we were looking to hone in on who was going to fill that F6 spot, Brian Myers was a name that kept popping up. And then out of nowhere, he gave us 2 dog shit scores of, they were like sub-60 kind of scores.
3, 65, 52, 70 in a row.
And then comes back out and gives us a decent score that we'd be happy to take for
$115.
F6. So the reason he's the flog there is just because there's no one's going to be going there now, and it's kind of what the fuck's going on there?
It's a waste.
It's a waste. And Geelong got done again, so you can't kind of explain it as they played well. But Grant Myers, sorry bro, 2 up and down for my liking.
Port Adelaide versus Brisbane. The best on ground goes to Zach Butters here, and I've learned a lesson here. I was on Twitter, I rarely, sometimes I go on Twitter and I tweet something out.
It's not something you typically do.
Every now and again, and I'll throw a little bit of a fishing rod out and see if I can catch anything.
You catch anyone?
Sometimes catch
Plenty
a
of
few
fish in the
things.
Twitter sea. We keep calling it Twitter, it's X. But
No, it's Twitter. It's always Twitter. But after Zach Butters was suspended, I sort of just threw a little line.
were you cheeky?
Threw a little line out and said, it's a rough start to the week. And Karma came back and just got me straight
good.
back away because he goes 120. Not only does he not get suspended, they reverse that. He comes
goes
back
big.
and he plays 120. So if you had that from what you expected at the start of the round, that's a huge bid bonus. And you're welcome, guys, because I definitely mozzed myself in that one. And he definitely came good. But we also had a little shout out to the rookie, Logan Evans.
Rookie of the week there,
Yeah,
I
coming
reckon.
in, mate. Looks pretty good. Had 50 plus at half time. So pretty happy to jump on that. Both you and I did because he was not named the sub. So a little bit of luck there.
Absolutely. Flog for this one is my VC choice. Now, the story of my VC choice this week is one of arrogance because I never doubted Tuke and Brayshaw. I backed him in. I said, my uniques are going to go 130, so I'm just going to make an arrogant VC choice. And I put the VC on Dane Zorko, regardless of the power matchup.
No, Port doesn't matter.
And that was the reason he gets my flog because he didn't go 100. But
Tell us the real story, Luke.
I'm a victim of the rollback team function.
Oh no, he's rolled the team
I've
back.
rolled the team back. I had what the big boys suggested. I had the Merit into Flanders.
Which ended up being a moot point anyway.
Yeah.
You got the
So
same score.
I was pretty happy that Flanders at least matched Merit.
It's all you could ask for. It really cost you nothing.
Well,
It was-
exactly. But I got done by the rollback team. I had the VC on Zorka. Can you imagine had I been watching Took and Brayshaw go bananas and just loving that, and then Flanders popped a 60 or
dog
something,
shit,
and I
yeah.
would just, bro.
Yeah. Yeah,
Sickening.
no, it would have been gross knowing you could have had something better there, but no harm, no foul. GWS versus Sydney. I'm going to give it. We obviously gave the Sponge Award to Errol Goulden, so I'm going to give also a bit of love to Tom fucking Green, who he's back. He got the marks. He got the tackles. 127.
He's one game enough to say he's back.
Well, for this segment it is. He was best on ground in this game, so it was very good to see him and inspired us with a bit of faith. It was the marks and tackles for me. 8 marks, that's a season high for him so far. So love to see that. 35 touches as well. So always good to see a ceiling score from a player who's been not putting up tons basically since round 7. That's his second highest score of the season, actually. Tied second highest score of the season. So there you go. Big score for Tom.
Errol's getting my flog just for selfish reasons. He's going to take the season away. The season was already gone, but it's taken it even further away from me. Honourable mention to Isaac Heaney, who didn't do his usual thing.
Yeah,
as well.
Absolutely.
Melbourne and North Melbourne. Who we got?
Best on ground. I'm going to give it to Trent Rivers just for he moved into the midfield. He was the one that got that Petrarca midfield minutes, and he was, I think, their highest CBA getter and also their highest point scorer in terms of the midfield. So sneaky 111, I think was, or 110. Kicked a goal, and just another defender putting their hands up as someone for us to consider. I still don't know if I fully believe it, but definitely at least worthy of a look.
Yeah, I'm doubling down on Clary, unfortunately.
Yeah,
You've got the camel, but you can have the flog as well. But also LDU's free kicks. There were like 4 free kicks, 2 of which were potential
you were
tackles.
writing this hard. I was getting the text messages in this one.
Yeah, I was. Brooke was having a Twilight marathon downstairs, so I went upstairs.
And you didn't want to join in on that?
Nah, I jumped upstairs on the laptop to watch the footy, and I shouldn't have because that was very frustrating. I think LDU could have given us a sort of a 110 score.
You had a big game from the stat sheet. What do you have, like 35 odd touches and a goal and stuff like that? So to still go sub 100 is a little disappointing. But
some frustrating patches there for sure.
Essendon versus West Coast, best on ground, the anti-Luke Rogerson curse. Jai Caldwell escaped your trading curse because you changed your trade last minute. Biggest score of the season, and just the time on ground, Luke. They finally realised this guy's actually good, and they played him on the field for a normal amount of time, and he rewarded them and played really, really well. So he was definitely a trade target for a lot of people last week. So hopefully you did go there, but still not too late, I think, to grab him now. 11 tackles, kicked a goal as well. And the kicks were there. Normally he's a big, happy handballer, but 20 kicks, 7 handballs is good to see as well. So 129, big score. Flog.
I'm giving the flog to 2 people here because Jai Caldwell was tagging Elliot Yeo.
Tagging.
Do you want to know how many points those 2 players combined for?
Yeah, a lot.
250 points.
Yeah.
And Jai Caldwell's tagging Elliot Yeo.
Well, they're tackling each other. That's happening.
Ask me how many points Marcus Windhager and Took Miller combined for in round 13.
Yeah, that's it. It's not very much.
It was about 100 points. And most of them by the tagger.
Yeah.
And this little tag combination results in 250 points.
I wouldn't have called these tags. Like, they were just going head-to-head at stoppages, and then afterwards they were doing their own thing.
The commentators were 100% wanted to call it a tag.
They love throwing that out there, though. They're like, oh, someone's tagging who? And you look at it, you're like, that's not a tag. But, 13 tackles for Yo, 11 for Caldwell. They were cuddling each other a lot. So when you can do that, that's fantasy gold right
there.
there.
There's never been a doubt in my mind about Jai Caldwell, except for the time on ground. When you watch him play, he's a jet. He knows how to find the footy. He does it in all aspects.
If this is his time on ground moving forward, if he's a mid-80s guy, he's 100 plus. Like, he's 100 plus easy. I think he's a really good player. So
Agreed.
hopefully that does continue. Freo versus Gold Coast to round it out. I've got to give it to your 2 boys here, Andrew Brayshaw and Took Miller.
Thank you, mate.
Look, you deserve this. You deserve these players going off because they've not been kind to you up to this point. But a little piece of an apology there from those boys. So
hey, mate, I could just be a couple of weeks ahead of the curb.
maybe they're coming back.
Hey, mate, I reckon people are going to scramble to get on at least Rosie this week.
Rosie, yeah, I think so.
Rosie, Took, Brayshaw, it's all happening.
Man, you've got them all.
If Brayshaw's got the keys to that midfield,
Let's go. What about a flog in this game, Luke?
The sexy boy, the sexual tiger, the sex pistol,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call him, sex meister.
Yep.
Just not quite enough, especially with what Will Powell did. I think there'll be a few question marks from people.
There will be. It's definitely one for us to watch.
Bit of wing time.
And let's talk about that now, actually. So we're going to talk about some general strategy here. So we are now officially out of the bye rounds. Now, we're going to talk about luxury trade season, which is what we're into now. If you haven't got all your rookies off your field, that is your priority. Because you need to get those rookies off field. Even if you've got, maybe Clayton Oliver's a different story, but you got to get all those guys capable of scoring sub 60 scores off your field, because those are the things. We're back to best 22. They're not going to drop off anymore. You've got to get those players off your field so you can get into this luxury trade season. But a lot of us are going to be there. What do you think we should be looking at once we've got all those rookies off field? What are we identifying? Tags? Are we identifying runs and things coming up? Is there just sort of, we're looking for the best 22, best 6, best 8 in each line? What's sort of our strategy there? Or what do you think we should be looking at for, Luke?
I think unless there's like a really obvious flag that jumps out, then I think there should be this kind of slow getting towards what we see as the best 22. But then what I sort of refer to when I say maybe something obvious that jumps out is, let's say, for example, a player that's maybe not like an elite premium like a Jordan Clark, who might be coming up for a tag against the Swans this week. Perhaps there's an opportunity to then target a little bit of a trade there for that like matchup based thing. The only players that I wouldn't be looking to do that with are just like the top of the line guys. So like, let's say you have a Zach Merritt or a Caleb Sarong that's coming up against a perceived tag. You're not going to trade off them because there's every chance they give you 120. But if you have one of those players that's in the second sort of echelon on their line, like the Jordan Clark example.
Yeah, and this is where I was talking last week in that super boring episode. I'll talk about like the tag breakers, like those players that can still get you to a serviceable score. You know, your Bontempelli, your Jordan Dawson, your Zach Merritts. Like those kind of guys can fight. Like Zach Merritt was tagged on the weekend. I don't know if it was the best tag, but he was. Like there was a player hanging off him most of the ground where he went, and he still managed to score a 111. So those players, you don't need to jump at the shadows too much.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, players like Lockie Whitfield, who, he's still turned up as well, and he was tagged as well. So it raises a few questions, and we'll talk about some of those tags coming up in a second. But there's still 9 weeks left of the season, right?
Yeah.
So we've still got to think a little bit long term.
Yeah.
So I don't think we should be, like you said, trading out players if they've got a poor matchup or a tag coming up, if you expect them to still be best 22.
Yeah.
But if they're on the borderline, if they're maybe a shade back or something like that, then if there's something coming up that's a bit of a flag, then yes, I'd be happy to cut bait on those guys and see if you can get someone else who may be equal chance to be best 22, but have a better matchup or something like that. Sort of what I'm thinking we should be all looking at.
And look, I'd be shocked and surprised if there's any team out there that has what we like generally would perceive to be the best 22 players, especially, and this is a little bit of a segue to what we'll talk about later, especially the way the defense is at the moment. There's guys that 4-5 weeks ago we perceived to be best 22 that have now been replaced by guys that are role changes. So I'm talking like a guy like Jack Crisp, who if he stays in the midfield role, I think he's now best 6 defenders, and he wasn't, let's say, 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. So, and then on the counter, a guy like Luke Ryan, who 2 weeks ago, everyone had locked in to be a best top 6 defender, but now you're looking at it from a different perspective. There's some teams that genuinely will not let them switch. Yeah. And then second to that, depending on how Alex Pearce's elbow is, does he have to play more accountable
he's going to play more of a key defender role.
I think that the defence is really interesting from that perspective too.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about in the defence. We'll talk about our best 22s later, but yeah, lots to talk about in that line as well. Are there any guys that you think, like say, for example, you talked about an Errol Goulden, are there players that you think are just like must-haves? If you don't have these players, you've got to sort of reach up to get... Like, if you don't have Max Gawn, if you don't have Errol Goulden, I'm hoping everyone's got Heaney's and Flanders
Yeah.
Probably Zorko's, like those big three forwards there.
The term must-have is always a tough one, isn't it? Because 3 weeks ago, if I asked you, is Errol a must-have? You go, I think he's going to be maybe top 8.
Yeah.
And then his last 3 weeks, you go,
It's gone
it's
bang.
insanity. So the must-have thing is a little bit tough to put the tag on people, but the way he's performing, he's well and truly above some of the other guys in that line. So
I would say in each line, we should all be aiming. We should all have Nick Dacos. I think
we're going to do our best, boys.
Yeah,
in a sec, so
I just think there's tiers. So Nick Dacos is in the defence.
Yeah.
Errol Goulden in the mids.
Zach Merritt
Max Gawn. Merritt.
But how can you say that after, 3 weeks? I know it's insane. I know it's like 150 every second week. I get that.
But it's the floor as well prior to that. So he's got no score under 80 except for round 0.
But if I asked you this
and only
question
3
3 weeks
scores under
ago,
100.
you wouldn't be justifying the floor. You would just be saying, no, he's kind of around the mix. So, I understand he's
It's
got
also
that
the fact
massive
he's not going to
ceiling.
get tagged. Like he's just there. He's just going to. There's no reason he can't keep doing this.
If I was a team coming up against them, I'd be seriously considering it what he's done. Because his possessions are not Luke Ryan possessions.
No.
They're
I mean, he's
dangerous as
good.
fuck.
It's just that he's in a team where he's got 2 other really good players in there as well.
He does.
I think you need Max as well, and I think you
Yep.
need those 3 forwards in Flanders, Zorko, and Heaney.
Yeah.
So I think those are the guys I'd be. If you don't have any of those, would that be 6 players? I'd be trying to get there, assuming you've got all your rookies off your field.
Extending on the strategy chat, forward line. With what Sexton did on the weekend, and then say me, for example, a guy that doesn't have Caldwell and maybe can't afford him this week, is there now something to be said for rolling the dice in that F6 position? Like I think Warney tweeted out just before that over the bye rounds, the 2 big lines forwards were in the top.
Danaher
And so
Hipwood,
I'm not saying that you won't get a 40 from them some weeks, but can you target a matchup with big forwards like that?
See,
Or
this
it
is
too early?
where I think it's still a little early to
Okay.
do that. So you've got a 3-round sample size over the bye rounds that these guys have obviously gone really good. With 9 weeks, I think it's a bit early for us to be doing that because there's going to be tags and things that we're going to want to get out of, and you're not going to have. You've only got 2 trades every week. Like you don't have 6. You don't. I mean, even just going from 3 to 2 is a big difference when it comes to sort of the flexibility of getting players out and. Maybe there's injuries that come up and things like that. You might think you've got a bit of flexibility to move some of these guys on and just get them in for 1 or 2 weeks, but you never know with things like that. So I still like to reserve those sort of key position guys for later in the season. Would be my take on that. But definitely something to consider later on, I think, as well.
Okay.
We'll still have a little bit of time to move through here. Let's talk about some tags.
Yep.
Let's talk about the traders have dubbed TWTW, so this week, and if these ones are big enough flags for us to be really concerned about. So you've got the James Jordan tag. Now, he went to Lachie Whitfield on the weekend.
Yeah.
But Whitfield, the second time he went up against him, got 108. The previous, he was like a 50. Now, it was a wet game last time they played as well, so that probably also lowered his score. I think it was like a 40 even, potentially. Now, you expect him to go to Jordan Clark this week.
Yeah. And in the same sense, Clark's going to be more prepared for it this time than he was last time.
So is that now something we don't need to be super... I mean, I imagine he's not going to have a ceiling score, but are we not stressed to the point where, okay, maybe this is a trade-out target because after that, they've got a really good run?
If your team's jacked up like your team is, like you look at your team and go, well, there's not really any other big flag, and that's kind of a half flag, so I do that. But like, for example, I have Jordan Clark as well, but I'm also needing to get an F6 that's respectable. Respectable, let's say Jai Simpkin. So to me, I'm not going to trade Jordan Clark out this week.
I think he's down the priority because, he's got Sydney, but then he goes Richmond, Hawthorn, Melbourne. So 3 green teams in a row.
Yeah.
Now, there's a world where you trade him out for a week, literally just trade him back in the week
it's not
after.
true season.
It is that type of year that you could potentially do that. But again, you've always got the risk that something happens and you're not going to have that ability to do that. But
if you're
not as concerned seeing on what Lachie Whitfield did last week, but it could still be a low score.
Yeah. It would be
Is there any possibility he goes to Luke Ryan or someone else, or Caleb Sarong or Brayshaw after he goes massive?
I don't think so.
I'd laugh my head off if you went to Brayshaw. That'd just be so funny after Tuke Miller cops it. If Marcus Windhager, speaking of Tuke Miller and his tag, he still goes to Butters, right? So they've got Port Adelaide. It's not Rosie. It's still Butters, you reckon, in your mind?
If it was me, I'd pick Butters, but I'm not on the security coaching side.
Rosie's going to be a big talking point as a trade-in target.
Yeah.
Are you trading him in and just expecting the tag to go Butters? Is there a small flag on the fact that there is a possibility that they put Windhager on Rosie or even move it to him halfway through the game? Is that something that's in the back of your mind at all?
Rosie's so cheap. Look, this is the thing. It's where you're coming from. So, like, if I was having to pay $900,000 for Connor Rosie this week as my trade-in target, and there was even the hint of a tag, and he was my trade-in guy, I wouldn't like it.
You would just try and go up to someone better.
But if you can literally, like, move 2 bench dudes and bring in Connor Rosie...
Oh, it's a huge upgrade.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
I think I'm still going for that.
Yep. But it's just if you could afford like a Taranto or something like that, at this stage of the season, you'd probably still go to Taranto instead of saving the cash and going to Rosie just because of that flag.
Yeah, I think I'd go all the way to the top. I can't imagine too many teams that still have 2 bench rookies that would combine enough cash to give them...
So you're talking like a 23rd primo?
All the way up.
Are you talking 23rd primo, or are you saying for people that don't have the rookies off the field?
Yeah, I'm saying, for the...
Okay.
People.
Yeah, no, I think I agree.
Because, like, for example, if you look at your bench and if you only traded 2 bench guys, you couldn't afford to make one of them Tim Taranto,
could you? I don't have enough money to do that.
Could you afford to make one of them Connor Rosie?
No, I don't think
quite.
so. I think I'd be a little bit short.
And that's what I mean.
I've skinned my bench a fair bit.
So I'm not trading Connor Rosie in as like a swap, Jordan Clark out to get Connor Rosie. But, like, if I can somehow make it work with bench guys and my, like, F6 with some DPP or something like that, then I would go there.
Yeah.
But all the good coaches owned him 2 weeks ago. So,
except for me. Will Phillips versus Bonds. Do you think he goes to Bonds? So he's been putting up some jobs. He held Clayton Oliver to 26 points. Now, I don't know if that's a huge trophy, but he has been holding a lot of players to shit scores. I think he was on Dacos for the first half or 3/4 of the game, held him, and Dacos went nuts in the second half. Does he go to Bonds? Now, he's a bit of a shorter fellow.
This is what I'm trying to work out here because he's 181. He's shorter than me, and Bond would be like 193.
He'd be at least 190. Yeah,
you can work out how. But to me, and this is just like my footy perspective on it, is if you tag Bond, like, Beveridge is just going to put him forward anyway, and then the tag's negated, and
192
is just playing.
So he's got over 10 centimetres on him,
and probably a few kegs too. So look.
So do they go somewhere else?
I mean, or maybe they go to him and he goes forward, and then it's just ends up being a nothing, and then they drop it. He comes in like that. They could go like that.
Because that's what Collingwood did in that game. They set Nick Dacos forward, and Nick Dacos kicked a couple of goals, and then they subbed him out. Like, they full subbed him out, and then Nick Dacos went back into the midfield and went crazy. So
yeah, I see that as being Bond. That's the when
so
you have a target.
So is there a risk though of him then moving to Treloar or something like that?
I mean, he could.
Because I'm considering that as one of my trade targets in a scenario, and the reason we want Treloar is because he's not going to get tagged. But or would they move to Libba? I'd probably go to Libba.
I wouldn't go to Libba. I'd go to Treloar. Treloar's way more damaging than Libba from an outside.
Yeah,
perspective.
no, you're probably right. You probably can't stop what Libba does as much.
I could be hanging off Libba. He'll still do exactly what he wants to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the thing that worries me a little bit too is, like, in my mind, Will Phillips is only a guy that's in their best 22
because of the tagging role.
Exactly. So like,
you
if
see
he's
him
picked and he's there, he's tagging. Yeah, exactly. Whereas there are some guys that you look at and go like, oh, he might be tagging this week. He might, James Jordan even, like, he might tag this week, but he might be in the team if he's not tagging. So Will Phillips, I feel like if he's there, he's got a role. It just depends who it is.
The last one who's clamped people down a fair bit is Toby Bedford for the GWS Giants. They've got Adelaide this week. Similar kind of scenario when it comes to the taller guys.
He'd have like 20 kilos on Bedford, surely.
I'm trying to look up Toby Bedford's height now as well. So he's 178. He's even shorter. So can he run with Dawson, or does he go to someone like an Isaac Rankin? And I know, talking about footy sense, Rankin's, I don't know if you've seen those player ratings and stuff like that. He's right up the top there in terms of those player ratings.
Yeah, I don't think Bedford could go to Dawson.
So you reckon...
They don't have the player weights anymore, so... Yeah. But I reckon Dawson would weigh 93 kilos, and Bedford be lucky to be...
And this is why I like those sort of bigger bodied mids, those tag breakers, because you do have the possibility that the teams don't bother with those kind of guys and just sort of run with those more sort of, traditional midfielders. So I think there's a flag on those guys. It definitely rules them out of captain contention, but I don't think those last two, Bont and Dawson, are too much to worry about personally. But a Butters and a Clark maybe a little bit more concerning. All right, let's chop.
Let's chop.
Let's chop. All right, so we've got a few different categories in this chopping block here. Number one are your rookies. I'm going to double down on this. If you don't have all your rookies off field by this round, you need to be getting them off your field. I'm talking to you, Luke.
Yeah, it's more like you're rubbing it into me, I think.
Get them off your field because it hasn't hurt you yet. Obviously, we're going back to best 22. You've got this extra little round here, extra little couple trays to make sure you've got no rookies on your field by after the bye rounds because they're capable of dropping those poor scores.
Yeah. I could see where the temptation comes to do something different. I was looking at my team today, and just because most of my really fattened cows are gone now, really all I can do is just barely get to like a dry simkin. And so you get that feeling of like, oh, that fucking sucks. Okay, I'll have a look at something else, look at something else. But at the end of the day, it's like...
But once you're there, once you've got all those rookies off the field, like you don't have to fall in love with these guys. Simpkin could be in your team for one week and then he's back out again. It's just a stepping stone to get there. But he's, I believe, much less likely, and I say that and I look just a few games back and he's scoring 60s and 40s. But I think he's less likely to go and score those sort of...
The role
really
seems a lot different
scores
since he's been back. And I mean, like, despite an 80-odd on the weekend, he had 25 touches. There's 0 tackles in there. Like, you'd like to think that maybe he's going to get a couple of tackles.
Most games get a few.
So, and I think forward line, you can hide behind that again. But I digress. What were we talking about?
Yeah, I think rookies have got to get off your field. And even before someone like a Clayton Oliver... which is really gross. Now, if you are still having some rookies on the field, the tough thing is, or the good thing, I guess, is Clayton Oliver plays the first game of the round. So you might even want to loop him on with some of your other rookies potentially, because he kind of almost is a rookie at this point. I'd still be trying to get players that are your traditional rookies off your field first. But he's a very close second. So he's got to go. Tom Powell, people who didn't trade him off at his buy round, he's also got to go. He's essentially a rookie as well. And then Christian Salem, people would have traded him in last week, and he got subbed out. Apparently there's a bit of a knee niggle, something like that going on that came out afterwards, which would be lovely to know beforehand, but we didn't. So he got subbed out tactically, but I think it was also a bit of a management. So I think he's someone that if you moved on, I'd be jumping off straight away if you don't have those other 3 guys ahead of him. And then it's your luxury moves. So those players we talked about before. Now I want to go through some names of some players that you could potentially be looking to move. A lot of people, like yourself, who could have traded him in the last couple of rounds. Is it too reactionary to be trading out Luke Ryan? He's put down 270 and 68, I think was last 2 scores. He's still got a lot of money, 970,000.
I don't think it is. If they were scores out of the blue and the roll was the same and there was like no little flags, then I think you go, okay, yeah, maybe it's just out of the blue. But there's enough teams. There's enough teams out there now that are well aware that when Fremantle seemed to play well, or at least when they demolished Melbourne a couple of weeks ago, it was just wax, 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 switch, 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 and teams will go, okay, well. Fremantle beat Melbourne doing that. They're likely to try and do it to us, make us work across the ground. Well, what are we going to do? We're just going to press up higher.
It's so easy to stop too, and that's the thing.
It really is. And then also, has there been news about Alex Pearce come out?
Well, I think he's getting scans or something like that, but it looks like he could be on the sideline for a little bit.
Even a week is too long.
I think it'll come out tomorrow, but
because we've seen in previous years that when he goes down, Luke Ryan has to play more accountable, and that impacts his scoring.
Yeah, this is not new for Luke Ryan.
Am I saying that if a team let them do what he normally does,
could he go for 130 again?
160 again. He could, and that's the terrible part about
it's
this.
The risk.
Exactly, it's the terrible part because you've got to almost look into the opposition change. The opposition coach's mindset. Oh, well, what are they going to do this week? Are they going to press up high? He has a St Kilda matchup coming up in a few weeks.
Well, he's got after this round, so he versus Sydney, which I think will be another tougher one for him. But
they're not going to be beaten strategically. Like they're going to.
No, I don't think so. But then they go Richmond, Hawthorn, Melbourne in 3 games, and obviously Melbourne. But you think Melbourne would have learnt, right? Surely. I mean, they didn't learn during the game, so I don't know. But Richmond,
He went 140 against Richmond earlier this year, didn't he?
That's a great matchup. Hawthorn have been giving up points for defenders as well. So they're 3 green matchups. So I don't think he's a very high priority trade out. I think of all the luxury moves, he'd be one of the lower ones for me.
This is why luxury season sucks, because if we were in our upgrade, what do you call it, cadence?
You're just forced to hold him, aren't you?
Yeah, you just keep going and you're like, well, this sucks, but we keep going. Whereas you could be...
fuck this time of year. this time of the season sucks. Because you trade him out, he could drop a 130 on your head every day. You hold him, he's going to drop a 70 on you. Like,
if you had him, I know you don't have him, but if you had him, would you move him? And would you move him before Jordan Clark? Like what
I don't think so.
Okay, you go.
So to put you in my perspective, he's someone that I'm potentially, and I'm not locking myself in this, but I might be looking at him to trade into my team next week.
Yeah. Depending on what you see.
Depending on what I see or sort of the other options around him. Maybe I give it a week if he puts up another like a shit score. But as someone who doesn't own him, like, I may be looking at him as a target to trade in. So if that gives you an idea of, like, you know, should you trade out, then probably paints a story of maybe holding him and hopefully with the tag going to Clark, maybe you can rack up a bit of pill.
Yep.
Alex Sexton. What do we think about him with Will Powell back into the side? And there was also, I think, Freako tweeted out that he was playing a bit of time on the wing.
Yeah.
Did you see that? Because I wasn't watching him very closely.
Yeah, I didn't. I saw the tweet. So,
what are we thinking about him? The other thing that complicates him is the forward line.
Yeah.
So if you're trading him out,
who to?
If
you don't have Jai Caldwell, and again you're in a really luxurious position where you're kind of happy with how everything else is sitting on your lines, I don't mind a move where you do one of your extra bench rookies, just generate a couple of 100k, and well, you don't even how much you have to generate. Nothing almost, don't you? It's 20k maybe.
They're 30k or 22k. Yeah, so it's pretty much a sideways move. So to get Sexton to Caldwell.
So if everything else is looking honky dory,
I'd rank Caldwell ahead of Sexton. So I think that's an upgrade.
Yeah, it's a luxury season upgrade.
Is Sexton to a Dylan Moore an upgrade?
No.
Is Sexton to Isaac Rankin an upgrade?
No.
So he's probably like that 6th or 7th guy still.
Yeah. So you're not entertaining moving him this week?
I am. It's an option.
Who to?
That's the question. Dylan Moore, he's got the Eagles. Can Dylan Moore kick 5 goals against the Eagles or something like that?
So you want to move into someone cheaper to get the money to move?
Well, there's no one better.
Sure, yeah, okay.
That's the thing with the forward line is like, okay, I'm going to trade out Sexton. Do I trade him to Joe Danaher? Do I trade him to Liam Baker?
It's Joe Danaher for me.
Do I trade him to Grind Myers? Like, that's the thing, right? Like, I like the Caldwell call because, yes, I would definitely have Caldwell over him. Maybe you trade him to Simkin and that money gives you enough to do something else because there's every chance he and Simkin are very similar.
Yeah.
Maybe if you don't have much other cash generating options. But if he was in a different line, I'd be much more encouraged to trade him out. But because he's in a forward line, we'll have to wait and see. I'd also be interested to see if they drop any of their defenders. So they've had a lot of defenders in their team. Like if they drop Joel Jeffrey or someone like that as a result.
Remember, all of this is preceded by getting all your rookies off the field. So all of this is provided that you have a team full of premiums, essentially. Nick Martin.
This is an interesting one because this is another one that I'm also considering.
This is not one that came up on my radar at all. So I'd be interested to see what you want to talk about here.
So he's had a change in role.
Yeah.
He played pretty much exclusively off half forward with a little bit of centre bounces.
Yeah.
I don't believe he had a single kick in. I'm going to double check that now. Now, he's a gun. He's up there. I think he's like top 5 in terms of total disposals for the season.
Yeah.
But the reason we picked him at the start of the year,
half-back role.
He was in the wing and then he moved back to that half-back role. We were like, this would be perfect for him. He's going to light up this role. If that's not the case, with a defensive line that's so full of other options, is he a player that we could trade out? Does he have the potential to drop a really poor score just in that role?
I think the answer is yes, but over the last 3 weeks, he's still averaging 100.
Yep.
And you're saying now that he's come into more like of a high half forward, which is essentially in a lot of ways an extra midfield role. And who does he take on this week?
Geelong. Yeah, that's the other thing. Is
and
a
then
great
Collingwood
matchup.
the following week.
Yeah, he's got a good run. The run's good.
So I think that 2-week run maybe says to me that there's other guys I'd be trading in a luxury position before I'd be trading him.
Would you trade him before Sexton?
No, I'd trade Sexton first.
See, I think he'll score more than Sexton.
But because of the line.
But if I'm trading him to like a Jack Crisp...
If I'm trading Sexton to Caldwell, then I'm not
You're
trading...
doing that first.
Yeah, I'm doing that first.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe if I was looking to trade Sexton to like Rankin or Dylan Moore, I would maybe entertain that. But then I'd trade Jordan Clark before both of them almost.
So he's got the tag coming up. Potentially you could trade him, or Zach Butters, who's got a potential hard tag coming up.
But like
you could trade Butters to his teammate and make a bunch of money and probably get a better score.
Yeah, so I'm not looking at trading Nick Martin this week, coming into Geelong and Collingwood. Because if he goes back to the halfback role, then everything's sweet as. But even if he's in and around that midfield or high half forward, Geelong,
I don't know if he's going back to that role as well, because they've got Ridley, they've got Redmond who's come back in, they've got McGrath there. Like, they've got so many guys there playing that role. So there's been a lot of chat about, like, is he a good kick? He's leading the comp in clangers or something like that. Look, so it's a weird one. And they obviously want it in his hands at some point, but like I do just think it caps your ceiling. And if you want to be a bit different, like, he's owned by everybody.
Yeah, luxurious, but I'm waiting maybe even 3 weeks.
Yeah. I think it's definitely one to at least watch over the next few rounds. Like you said, he's got a good run. Like the next 3 games, I think they're all sort of decently.
Well, Melbourne's good for defenders, but Geelong and Collingwood, particularly if he's playing high half forward and around the ball.
Melbourne's good for anyone who runs around and finds a bit of space. So I think
not good for Clary. The Melbourne matchup's killed Clary this year.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's go on to the next little segment here, which we're going to be... Basically, this is our replacement for the trade targets, because it's after the bye rounds. We're looking at best 22 players, and we want to know who the fuck are they?
You're simply the best.
Simply the best. This
Better
is
than all the rest.
Hopefully we don't get another copyright strike with your beautiful singing there. But the Ball Boys Best Boys, this is our version of the best 22.
Yeah.
We're starting at the defence line.
Look at those faces on the playing cards.
Well, two of them.
Who's in the middle?
Yeah, Clayton Oliver. Fucking hell. He was good enough to make the queen on our deck of cards there.
Yeah, shit.
Now he's putting up 26s. The defenders.
Yeah.
I put this out to Twitter before today.
I saw you get a bit of traction.
And because I was trying to do this in preparation for the podcast, and I found it very, very hard to narrow it down to 6 defenders. I could come up with basically 14 or 15 different names that I could conceivably see being a top 6 defender. This is where I've landed. I want your feedback.
Yeah.
Nick Dacos, Harry Sheasel, number 3, Bailey Dale, number 4, Jack Crisp, 5, Lockie Whitfield, and 6, I've still got Luke Ryan sitting there. So you're out on Luke Ryan. He's the one that you're crossing off?
Yeah, chop Luke Ryan. He's as good as done.
So my next highest was Max Holmes as an option there. But honorable mentions.
What's this Hayden Young disrespect, mate?
No, he's solid. But I mean, like all these guys are going to be averaging within a couple of points of each other. So that's the other thing, is like, does it really matter? But other honorable mentions, you've got Jordan Clark, Hayden Young, Nick Newman, Nick Martin, Nazai Wangley-Miller, Jack Sinclair, Dan Houston. Some people are calling for Will Powell to be a bit of a smoky. You've got Elliot Yeo, who's putting up 110.
One good score for Will Powell. He's a smoky.
There's a lot of these other guys there. I mean, I've just named 14, 15 different players there.
Spoiled for choice.
So we are spoiled for choice. I guess maybe you've got ceiling and floor. So
yeah.
If you're ranked a bit further back, the guys with the ceiling... I mean, Luke Ryan is still... He has the ceiling.
He's the master ceiling.
He's also got the dirty floor.
He's such a dirty floor.
What's changed about... It's just how teams are guarding them.
Yeah, 100%.
And you think that's going to continue?
You can see it. Yeah,
I can definitely see it. But do we think that's going to continue?
It depends week to week.
On the coach of the opposing team.
There'll be teams. See what you give up. So by pressing higher up the ground and guarding a Luke Ryan type, not allowing the switch, what you give up is you give up the opportunity for the team to get through with short 45s because you don't have that condensed defensive structure.
That's why Brayshaw's going off.
So if there's teams that go, hey, we don't want to give up our condensed defensive structure, then Luke Ryan will have a field day every day of the week. No problems. But if there's teams that say, hey, we don't really want them to switch on us, okay, we'd rather them go long down the line or try and beat us through the corridor, then he's going to be putting up 40s, 50s, 60s. So it's like, do you take a 160 one week and a 70 the other week, and like you just be happy that the law of averages kind of works out in your favour? I don't know. Yeah,
interesting one. What about Jack Crisp? He's another interesting one in this list because you've got a couple of players coming back for Collingwood.
He's been good enough, surely.
He's been so good. He's gone 108 since he moved into the midfield.
Yeah.
Really, really good. You've got DeGoey coming back. You've got Pendlebury coming back. But you still...
It's amazing.
I don't know if Tom Mitchell's coming back at all.
It's amazing what they've been able to do in that period. And I think he's been a huge part of that. So,
would you rather Jack Crisp or Max Holmes? There's two of those
Jack Crisp
midfield types. Jack Crisp?
Crisp, yeah.
The other thing I looked at when I was looking at Max Holmes' scores, since moving to the midfield, he's been going really well. He's been averaging like 105, 106.
Yeah.
His time on ground has dropped a lot.
Since going to the midfield.
Being in the midfield. He's been like averaging, I think, 75% time on ground. Whereas before he was sort of mid to high 80s.
But his average has gone up.
You could look at that two different ways, right? Bit of concern that his time on ground's gone down. Or optimism that if it does go back up to what it was, that scoring's going to go even higher and maybe there's a bit of a ceiling there. Because he's been a guy that's been super consistent, but maybe hasn't quite had the ceiling. Very interesting one there. But this is how I've got it there. I mean, like I said, the hardest round for me to pick, position, for me to pick for that one there. So drop down the comments. What do you guys have as your best 6 defenders? And who do you think is a sneaky target for that one? Midfielders. Number 1, Errol Goulden. Number 2, Zach Merritt. 3, Bont. 4, Sam Walsh. 5, Caleb Sarong. 6, Jordan Dawson. 7, Adam Treloar. And 8, Timmy Taranto. So last week I talked about those sort of tag breakers and tag avoiders. I think all of the players in this list kind of apply to that rule of thumb there. Honourable mentions are Josh Dunkley, Rory Laird, Connie Rosie, and Tom Green. Is there any guy in there that you disagree with in terms of the list or the order?
No, I don't think so. The only one that I think is kind of interchangeable with that list is Josh Dunkley. I don't think that Laird, Rosie, or Green are in that category.
Yep.
I'd even go as far to say as like Connor Rosie in the honourable mentions, but no Zach Butters.
I think Butters is more of a tag risk. That's my
maybe. But I think you're pretty close. Like if you've got those 8 midfielders in your team, then you're riding that home, aren't you? So
what do you think the difference is between a Tom Green and like Treloar and Taranto's at the bottom there? Like how much separation is there between those?
At the moment, massive. Tom Green's gave us one good score.
Yeah, fair.
If he gives us that for the next 2 weeks running, then it's a conversation. But Adam Treloar is always disrespected when his hamstrings are on the bone, and Tim Taranto.
Well, I hope they're on the bone.
Tim Taranto's just a little piggy wiggy that does his thing at a team that sucks.
What about the Hopper effect? Like so, because this is a real stat. Like he averages a lot better.
When's Hopper coming back?
I think he's a test for this week.
Okay.
I think he could be back this week.
So maybe you wait a week if you're going to think about trading in Taranto.
Yeah. Do you think it's a legit thing, or do you think it's like? Do you reckon it's just coincidence almost? Like, just put your Richmond hat on. Like,
no, it's a legit thing.
Yeah, because we don't want it in his hands as much. Yeah, he's not very good. Okay. Fair enough.
I know you're asking for selfish reasons.
I am.
Well, you can't ignore that statistic, but I know that you're then thinking, oh, will Treloar get a tag? I'd go Treloar before Taranto this week if I was you.
Okay. All right, let's go into the rucks. I think it's pretty clearly Max Gawn. I've still got Rowan Marshall there at number 2.
Okay.
He is still averaging 111.
That's nuts.
Everything said and done, he is averaging 111 points per game. He is averaging more than any midfielder except for Errol Goulden for the season. So, given the highs and lows,
that's insane.
He's still 6 points clear from the next best ruckman.
I want to be able to pick a ruckman in my midfield. That's what I want.
They're going pretty good, aren't they? Especially Grundy recently as well. But yeah, he's averaging 111. The next best outside of Max Gawn is Tim English at 105. Grundy also 105. And then Tristan Sherry's also 105. So that kind of range there is all very close. But Rowan Marshall's still 6 points better, and he's got the ceiling, and that's the thing, right? He's got a good matchup this week, and like Tom Campbell, we wouldn't expect him to be back in there, right? He played like 50% time on ground. Like, he's not actually an issue, do we think? He's had his one cameo appearance for the year.
And now he's off.
He's out.
Yeah, I think you can't ignore that average, can you?
I think so. So I still think that getting Tristan Sherry to him is something that I would
But that's
be keen
like
to look for.
Down the track, surely there's other things to be done.
It's got a good matchup this week.
Okay.
Feature highly in the big boys. Forwards.
Love the X-Men.
The forwards are starting to become more clear. Number 1, I've got Isaac Heaney. 2, Sam Flanders, who played a bit of midfield time in the last game, which was interesting to note, something to look for. Number 3, Dane Zorko. 4, I've pushed him up. Jai Caldwell is at number 4.
Yep.
Zach Fisher, number 5. And I've got Dylan Moore at number 6.
Sexy boy gets disrespected.
I've dropped the Sex Pistol. I don't know. He's a 31-year-old guy who was never really meant to be in our teams as a premium.
It's true. And he's been in there twice.
Will Powell comes back in, his scoring comes right back immediately. And it's not like Will Powell scored less than him. Will Powell had a good game. Like, he had 12 marks, something like that.
Yeah.
Like, took his points.
There really is every chance that now that we've got Powell back, they look at it and just say, thanks for your service, mate. It was good while Powell was gone, and now you know what it is. Like you said, you're 31.
He's still an honourable mention, so Sexton is still an honourable mention, as is Rankin, Liam Baker, and Shea Bolton. But I do just have Dylan Moore sneaking in there. I don't feel great about it, though.
There's every chance he could become a forced trade. Spicy take for when teams are named Alex Sexton.
Do you reckon he's not there?
Well, it's a spicy take for a reason.
True.
You know what I mean?
Well, that would make decisions for trades easier, I guess.
Not for teams that haven't got a completed team. Like, it just fucks me up.
Yeah.
But hey, look, Will Powell comes in, performs, they lose. He kind of got shifted like, we don't really have a role for you. Go play some wing.
Do you reckon so we saw Flanders go into the midfield.
No.
Do you reckon there's a possibility we see that, or that was just an in-game
I think that was a
thing?
break glass in case of emergency.
I kind of tend to agree.
Throw something out there.
Yeah, they were kind of getting done, weren't they? Who do they play this week? I think they've got another decent matchup.
Someone easy for Took.
Yeah, Collingwood. So, I mean, that's good for half-backers as well. So, if he is still in that role... and he still had 5 kick-ins. That's the other thing with Sexton. He had 5 kick-ins, and I think Powell only had 1 or something like that. So, I tend to give him another week just because the other guys there are just a bit stinky anyway.
Let's hope Damien Harwood gives him another week too.
Come on, Dimmer. We'll see. I could trade him anyway. We'll see how things shape out this week. But, yeah. Any early insights into what you're doing this week? You're scrounging to get that final rookie off the field.
Yeah, it feels super dirty, but it's all that I can really do. So I'm just going to trade two bench guys in probably Freya and Sullivan just to give me just enough cash to get Simpkin as my F6, and I'll need sort of like a 200k rookie if I can.
Yep.
I don't think there's much more I can do.
Here's another question for you: Are we at the point where we're throwing rookies yet? Are we just getting rid of going to 200k rookies? Don't care who it is, they need to be 200k. Just get our cash on the field.
No, I don't think so. Well, I mean, definitely not for me. If I want to get some of my midfielders to a decent midfielder, I need cash generation.
True.
If I'm looking at, because Tuke Miller, that's a flash in the pan. Andy Brayshaw, there's every chance that's a flash in the pan too. So I need more than 250k to get Tuke Miller to
get to Errol Goulden.
Yeah, and it's not like those big games. They brought their break even down to what they've pretty much been averaging for the season.
It's not like it's a 50 break even.
Exactly. So I think that even for your team, cash generation is still something you want to...
If it's there to be had, do it, I think. But I start to think now... It's going to be very, and dirty words of the season, team dependent, because if you've got, I would start to count up, okay, well, how many weeks of the season do we have left?
Yeah.
How many cash makers do I have on left? So for me, I've got Harvey Thomas, McAuliffe, Kruger, Dowling, Logan Evans, Ari Showmaker. There's 6 players who I expect to make a little bit of cash.
Yeah.
We've got 9 rounds left. So I may only need 1 or more cash cows left to trade in for me to make an upgrade. And even on some of those rounds, like this round, potentially I might not be even cashing in some of those players.
Yeah.
So there is a point where you might not even need some of these rookies. However, you're still going to want to have bench cover, I think, is the other big thing. Because say we get another late Jai Simpkin thing and you're stuck and there's nothing you can do, that bench cover could be very important. So try to make sure you have at least one playing on every line.
Might hopefully see a few mid-season draftees
Yeah, well,
get
like
the
our boy
trot.
Logan Evans.
Yeah.
He was one of them. So, yeah, we could definitely see a few of those. I think Richmond might be served to debut some of their boys as well. That might do it for us today, mate.
It's been a long one.
Big, long one. Lots to talk about. Lots to think about. Luxury season. It's going to do my fucking head in. And it's going to be a long, stressful end to the season. If you do, guys, have any more questions, drop them down in the comment section below. Or you can head over to askmeonq, spelled qu.com/ballboys, and get your questions in there for a small little fee, which helps out the podcast and is very much appreciated. Make sure you guys give this video a big old thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button. And if you have been enjoying the podcast, and if you want to just give me some good vibes on the run home to try and get the Hilux, go over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and give us a 5-star rating and review. I'm sure that's going to be a positive moz for my team moving forward. And if you don't want me to win, go and give me a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and give me a moz. And let me know there, guys. But we'll see you guys on Friday for the live show. Until then, bye.